I gave away 70% of everything I owned. Not slowly, not with a plan, and I haven't regretted a single thing. For decades, I believed my things told the world who I was. My books meant I was thoughtful. My clothes said I had taste. My shelves full of gadgets meant I was prepared. But one morning I couldn't find my favorite mug, the one I'd had for 15 years. It was buried under things I hadn't touched in years. That's when something shifted in me. I wasn't collecting memories. I was collecting weight. In 3 weeks I packed box after box and let it all go. And what came next wasn't emptiness. It was the first deep breath I'd taken in 30 years. If you're surrounded by a lifetime of things, and yet something still feels missing, this is for you. Every object in your home is making a decision for you, whether you realize it or not. When I was younger, acquisition felt like possibility. A fancy blender meant I'd finally make smoothies. A leather jacket meant I was confident. A complete set of kitchen knives meant I was adulting correctly. We're taught that ownership is achievement, but here's what nobody tells you. Every single item demands energy, not just money, energy. That stack of magazines you're going to read, it's silently demanding your attention every time you walk past it. Those 8 coffee makers taking up cabinet space, they're whispering about the version of you that thought you needed this. The clothes you haven't worn in 3 years, they're guilt. Pure guilt hanging in your closet. I kept records. Over a year, I spent roughly 45 minutes per week on stuff-related decisions, deciding what to wear from 120 shirts, organizing things, cleaning around objects instead of removing them, feeling guilty about unused items. That's nearly 40 hours per year of my finite life. Gone. Not spent living, spent managing objects. And the weight was physical. My shoulders were tight. I had persistent low-level anxiety I'd normalized as just being a person. But it wasn't. It was the weight of maintaining a life too big for me. The moment I opened my closet 3 weeks later, after throwing away 70 boxes, I physically felt lighter. My body knew before my mind did. I didn't see the connection until my sister pointed it out. We were sitting in my living room, and she said something that landed hard. She said, "I feel like I'm visiting a museum, not a home." She wasn't wrong. I had so much stuff that there was barely room for people. My dining table was a catch-all. We couldn't sit and have coffee without moving something. My friends had stopped inviting me over because my place felt chaotic, and I'd stopped inviting them because I was too busy managing the space. But here's the darker part. I was choosing objects over relationships, not consciously. But when you have limited time and energy, you spend it on what's demanding attention. My apartment was screaming. My friends were being quiet and patient, so they lost. I had a shelf of self-help books I'd never read. Meanwhile, my best friend had asked me 3 times to go on a weekend trip. I'd said no each time, because I needed to deal with my space. I eventually went on that trip. And you know what? I didn't think about my apartment once. That's when I realized my possessions weren't enhancing my life. They were replacing it. I found a journal from 10 years ago. I'd written, "One day I want to have a home that feels peaceful, a place where people want to be."
Oh, don't remind me.
I'd completely forgotten writing this, but my younger self had known. She'd known I wasn't happy in this museum. That's when I decided, I'm not keeping things for the person I thought I'd be. I'm making space for the person I am, right now. There's a moment when you stop trusting the system that sold you on ownership. For years, I believed the narrative, get the right stuff and you'll be happy. Buy this and your life will improve. Accumulate enough and you'll finally feel secure. But security never came. It kept moving. Every purchase created a new need. The breaking point came when I bought an expensive organizer system. Beautiful storage boxes, color-coded bins, labels. This would finally fix everything. I organized for a week. Then nothing changed. I was still anxious. The organizer just made my excess more aesthetically pleasing. It turned chaos into tasteful chaos. That's when I understood. You can't organize your way out of too much. You can only eliminate your way out. I started researching the minimalist influencers I followed online. Most of them were also anxious. They just found a different way to manage it. But there were a few who'd actually crossed over, who'd let go completely. And they looked different, not just organized, actually peaceful. That's when I realized I couldn't trust the old system anymore. Every single day, you're being told to want more. When I decided to throw away 70% of my possessions, the world pushed back. Social media showed me people with beautiful homes filled with beautiful things. Ads told me I was incomplete without their products. Every store I walked into was designed to make me feel like my life was missing something, and the language was so seductive. Invest in yourself. Treat yourself. You deserve this. But one day I calculated something. I owned 340 pieces of clothing. I wore 23 of them. The other 370 were sitting there. Guilt, weight, potential, failure because I'd never fit into that dress from 2015. Hope that maybe one day I'd wear this again. I wore 6% of my wardrobe, and I was paying for 100% of it, not just in money, but in decision fatigue. Every morning I had to sift through 340 pieces to find the 23 I actually wanted to wear. The world wants this. If everyone stopped accumulating, entire industries would collapse. The marketing industry exists to convince you that the life you have right now isn't enough. And I'd been buying it, literally and metaphorically. When I started throwing things away, I suddenly saw the propaganda everywhere. A commercial came on about a new smartphone, and I realized I don't need this. My phone works. But the ad is telling me I'm behind if I don't upgrade. Once you see the system, you can choose to opt out. The most terrifying moment was the day my apartment was mostly empty. I stood in my living room, which now had only a couch, a chair, and a lamp, and I felt panic. My first instinct was to fill the space, to buy something, anything, to make it feel normal again. The emptiness felt wrong, like failure, but I forced myself to sit with it for 3 days. By day 2, something shifted. Instead of panic, I felt possibility. That empty wall didn't feel like loss. It felt like space to breathe. That bare shelf didn't feel empty. It felt like room for something that actually mattered. I started experimenting. I put a single plant in the corner, just one. One beautiful dish, one good coat, one book, and I actually read it instead of letting it sit on a shelf as a status symbol. And something extraordinary happened. I started noticing things. The way light came through the window in the morning, the sound of the refrigerator, the texture of my bed sheets, these tiny details that had been drowned out by clutter suddenly became vivid. I started having friends over again, and they said something I'll never forget. Your home feels like you. Not your home looks nice. It feels like you. It feels intentional. It feels alive. Empty spaces stopped being absences. They became presence. One afternoon, I sat in my empty living room with a cup of tea, and I cried. Not sad tears, grateful tears. Because I realized I'd been living in a storage unit, and I'd finally walked out into sunlight. The emptiness wasn't the loss. The fullness had been. People assume minimalism is about deprivation, about saying no to joy. The opposite is true. It's about saying yes to the only joy that actually lasts. I own less. But what I own, I love. I wear my clothes, not just look at them. I cook with my pots, not store them. Every object in my home is there because it serves me. When you have 120 shirts, you feel paralyzed every morning. When you have 8, you get dressed in 2 minutes and never think about it again. That's not deprivation, that's freedom. The money part is real too. I used to spend maybe $2,500 per year on things I didn't need. Now I spend $300. With the money I save, I've taken trips I never could have afforded. I went to Greece for 3 weeks. I hiked every day. I read books on beaches. I had conversations that changed how I see the world. That trip cost less than I used to spend on things I don't even remember buying. But the real clarity is existential. When you stop maintaining an excess of objects, you suddenly have time for yourself. Time to think, time to read, time to call a friend and actually be present. Now I know what I like, what brings me joy, what I want to do with my one finite life. And it's not buying more things, it's buying time. If you've been feeling suffocated by your possessions, you're not alone. There's a movement happening quietly. Millions of people are waking up to the same realization. Ownership is exhausting. Marie Kondo's method became a global phenomenon not because people thought it was fun, but because it worked. People got relief from it. Real, tangible relief. TikTok is full of people showing their empty apartments, their minimalist closets, and the comments are always the same. I want this so badly. This gives me so much peace. That's not aesthetic preference. That's deep psychological hunger. My mother did this at 62. A friend decluttered during the pandemic and said it saved her mental health. A colleague moved into a smaller apartment and says it's the best decision she ever made. We're all discovering the same thing. Excess creates anxiety. Simplicity creates peace. And here's what shocked me. It's not actually hard. The hard part is the decision. The hard part is going against every message our culture sends us. Once you decide that your peace is more valuable than your possessions, the rest is just logistics. You're not weak for feeling burdened by your stuff. You're just awake. 3 months after throwing away 70% of my possessions, I realized I hadn't thought about organizing in weeks. Not weeks. I genuinely hadn't thought about my apartment's organization or appearance. The mental space it used to occupy was just gone. Instead, I was thinking about other things. I was reading again. I was cooking without resentment. I was having people over and actually enjoying them. I was sleeping better. My shoulders felt lighter. That low-level anxiety, it lifted. This chapter of my life isn't about having nothing. It's about having intentionality. Every object in my home earned its place. Every decision I make is mine, not dictated by the weight of ownership. One morning I sat in my apartment and thought, this is what it feels like when your external world finally matches your internal world. No contradictions, no guilt, no pretending to be a person I'm not. There's a freedom in that, a wild, quiet freedom that I don't have words for. It's not the freedom to buy more. It's the freedom to be more. If you're standing in a room right now, surrounded by things you don't use, you have a choice. You can keep managing them, or you can walk out into the sunlight. It's the most liberating decision I've ever made. This isn't about buying nothing. It's about buying intention. If this resonates with you, I want to hear your story. What's one thing you've been meaning to let go of? Comment below, because you're not alone. And if you want more on simplicity and building a life that actually fits you, subscribe. New videos every week on the things nobody talks about, but everyone's actually thinking. Thank you for watching.